Did you know a roof isn't just a roof in Southwest Florida? It is a value trigger. And if you are selling a home or buying a home in Southwest Florida with an older roof, here's the truth, you guys. Your roof is going to get judged by 3 different people, and they do not grade or judge it the same way.
This is sport for me. It's my sport.
And quick disclaimer, I'm Kathryn Newman. I am a real estate agent. I am not an attorney. I'm not an insurance underwriter, and I'm not an inspector or a roofer, but I am the person who sees a lot of deals get slowed down or even killed over a roof all of the time here in Southwest Florida. So who are these 3 people getting all judgy with a roof? The insurance company, the appraiser, and the buyer. Of course, that buyer is the one that's going to read that insurance quote and sometimes could possibly panic or even pass out. So let's start with the one person that usually kind of causes all of the chaos, and that is insurance. So Florida law, this is Florida law, and it says that if your roof is under 15 years old, an insurer cannot refuse to issue or renew solely because of the roof age. If your roof is 15 years or older, the insurer must allow you to get a roof inspection by an authorized inspector. Keep that in mind. And of course, you're going to pay for it. And the insurer cannot refuse solely because of roof age if that inspection shows that there's 5 or more years of useful life remaining. So that 5+ years language is the phrase that's going to decide whether your closing on a house stays smooth or it turns into roof drama. RUL stands for remaining useful life, and basically it's just how many years the roof is expected to keep doing its job. Florida statute says that an authorized inspector is someone approved, listen, by the insurer and who is a licensed home inspector, a building code inspector, a contractor like a roofer, maybe a professional engineer, an architect, or another person or entity that the insurer recognizes as qualified. Keep that in mind. So yes, a home inspector can qualify if the insurer will accept it. But here's the catch. A typical home inspection, even if you do have a valid 4-point inspection and a wind mitigation certificate that gives the inspector's opinion of the remaining useful life of that roof, does that RUL solve the insurance RUL question? Because the insurance company may look at that valid 4-point by that licensed inspector, and they could say, I'm not saying they will, I'm just saying it's possible that they could argue that a standard home inspector and a standard home inspection is designed to report the visible condition on the very day that the inspection is conducted. That inspection is not necessarily designed to predict the future of that roof. Now, if you look at most Florida home inspection standards and their standard verbiage, they're all going to say a variation of something like a home inspection does not include the prediction of future conditions. So even if a home inspector notes that the roof looks okay, it looks great, and you have that great 4-point and you have a wind mitigation certificate from them that states that the remaining useful life of the roof is more than what's required, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, whatever, that will not always satisfy what the insurance underwriter wants or what the buyer is going to need when they're asking for that remaining useful life in writing. So the condition that it is today in an inspection does not equal remaining life certification for some insurance carriers. And of course, you have no clue who your buyer is going to be using. So why in the heck should you even bother with paying for an upfront home inspection on your home if you're a seller before you put it on the market? That is a great question, and we're going to get to that in just a few minutes. But before we do, let's talk about how that remaining useful life letter is typically done and what does it include. And a valid remaining useful life document typically is going to include the roof type, right? Is it shingle? Is it tile? Is it metal? The estimated age of that roof and when it was installed. Of course, photo documentation. They're going to make any visible wear or damage notes on their report. They're going to see if the flashing and the valleys and how the water penetration of the condition of that roof is. Is the water penetrating or is it, going off through the gutters or whatever? They're also going to look at the underlayment concern. Now, this is especially for tile roof because remember, just because the tiles themselves are in great shape, there's nothing broken, maybe there's nothing cracked, it does not mean that the underlayment beneath the tile is in great shape too. So this is the aspect of a tile roof that is going to cause concerns for the insurance companies, that underlayment. After they have finished their evaluation, then they're able to give the estimated remaining useful life in a number of years. And of course, I want you to keep in mind that insurance carrier rules are going to vary from carrier to carrier. But let's talk about a common insurance carrier here in Florida. Everybody knows it's the government-backed Citizens. Now, this organization was created by the Florida legislature back in 2002 as a not-for-profit, tax-exempt government entity to provide, I'd say, a safety net for those people who could not find coverage in the private market. Citizens serves as Florida's insurer of last resort. So under state law, it provides property insurance to eligible owners who are unable to find coverage from private companies. And to ensure that it does not compete directly with the private market, the organization only issues policies when the comparable private coverage is either unavailable to a person or when the premiums from the private insurers are significantly higher than the rates at Citizens, the state-backed. So let's talk about private carriers. When insurers evaluate roofs over 15 years old, they're not really evaluating just the condition that it is today. They want evidence that the roof can still resist wind, it can resist water, it can withstand storm exposure, that it can last at least 5 more years. So it's true for Citizens and private insurance. So whether you use the state-backed insurer of last resort, which is Citizens, or you use an insurer in the private market, the underwriters of those policies, they're always thinking the age of the roof is going to trigger documentation. Now, you may be asking, why would I use the state-backed or a private insurer? Why would I use one over the other? A Florida homeowner usually uses Citizens property insurance because private insurance is unavailable. It's also too expensive, right? Or they use Citizens because it's too restrictive for private insurance for their specific home and where it's located. Now, Citizens is designed to be, again, the insurer of last resort. It is not the first choice. So how does all of this affect premiums and renewals of policies? So even if you get coverage, an older roof is often going to trigger higher premiums, limited coverage options, higher deductibles, or tighter underwriting criteria. And believe me, I see it all the time. Private carriers are increasingly cautious because roof age correlates with, of course, claims risks as the age increases, which is why the roofs that are over 15 years old are going to trigger more scrutiny. Hey, do me a favor, if you are getting any value out of this important real estate related information. Of course, I'd love for you to go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to this YouTube channel so I can keep this important information coming at you so that you're always aware that you can make an informed decision based on what's going on here in Florida, everything real estate related, to help you make more sense out of whether you want to live here or not, or if this is the right place for you to land. Now, let's talk about the second person judging that roof, and that is the buyer's appraiser. And let's talk about how that appraiser values your older roof. So when we're talking about the appraisal, I have sellers that often ask me, hey, if my roof is older, but it's not leaking, it's in good shape, we've never had any issues, will the appraiser deduct the full cost of a new roof? And of course, I'm like, no, almost never. And that's a good thing, for the appraised value. The appraisers have certain formulas they use to determine what deduction they make on that older roof. Of course, once they have that documented remaining useful life determination from that approved vendor. For example, they will take the average cost of like a new like roof replacement that's common for the area, or maybe even common and specific for that community. They can take whatever that price is for a new roof and they do the math with the remaining useful life determination. They're also going to assess if there's any deduction from value based on how many other homes in the community have already replaced similar roofs and what their sales prices have been and how many days they were on the market. They're going to do this to gauge if older roof homes are selling more slowly, are they selling for less money than the comparable homes that had new roofs. Yes, appraisers are doing that. And I really encourage you to watch the video that I made about the new appraisal UAD 3.6 methods. And those things are already in play right now. And why the job of the appraisers just got a lot more precise. And of course, they're going to be busy and very involved with these appraisals from now on. But watch that video because that's going to give you some great information too. Because appraisers typically treat an older roof, I'd say in like, 3 buckets. So bucket A, let's say that's the functional typical wear. Good roof, functional wear and tear. If there are minor deferred maintenance items, and the report is generally going to be completed at what they call as is, right? And the appraiser has got to reflect the impact in value and the marketability of that roof. Now, let's say in bucket B, that's a deficient roof, and that's impacting the soundness of the roof. So that would be issues affecting, I want you to think something like active leaks, or there used to be leaks, or there's worn shingles, missing shingles, those kind of issues. And the appraisal then may need to be subject to repairs, and they might not give that loan to that buyer until those repairs are made. And then, of course, there's bucket C. None of us want to be in bucket C. That just means the roof is caving in, it's crappy, its condition is severe enough to be rated the lowest category. And of course, that just means it's not eligible for most lending. They're going to value it based on actual documented condition. They're going to look at the market reaction, meaning how are home buyers responding to older roofs in the market? And how are they going to know this? Well, they know this information by seeing how similar comps with new or newer roofs, how much did they sell for? How much were they in compared with homes that had older roofs? How long were they on the market? How much did the older homes sell for? That is that marketability factor. And yes, that's what's taken appraisers so much more time. And finally, appraisers are basing home values whether the roof is going to create a lending issue to give that buyer the loan that they want. Again, all of this is taken into account for that appraiser for that marketability risk. So now we are on to the third person that will be judging that roof. And I would say these are probably the judgiest of them all, and of course, rightly so. Okay, so we've talked about the insurance company, we've talked about the appraiser, and the third judge is actually the one that's gonna decide the price of that house, and that is the buyer who's willing to pay for it. So in Southwest Florida, buyers aren't really being dramatic about older roofs. They're just being financially logical, financially responsible, especially if a buyer happens to be maybe like a retiree and they're on a fixed income, or a younger family and they have a certain budget. And buyers already know if they can't insure the house, well, then of course they can't buy it. When a buyer sees an older roof, the first question they ask isn't, is it great? Is it pretty? Does it fit our needs? The first question is, can I get insurance? And what's that insurance gonna cost me? Number two, buyers are already worried about insurance costs. Well, that would be nationally, but in Florida, it's even more of a concern. So the concern that buyers have that Florida is the worst state for insurance, maybe it's subjective, at least in my opinion, because again, for me, 20 years of Colorado, I had to make 7 claims, I had to replace 6 roofs. I didn't own 6 houses. That's how many roofs I had to get. I had to replace some windows, and of course I had to get some exterior paint, all due to, you guessed it, hailstorm. Some of you know exactly what I'm talking about with those hailstorms in Colorado. Now, Realtor.com surveyed recent buyers and prospective buyers, and they found out that 75% believe that homeowners insurance could soon become unaffordable. So they're afraid of it. And 47% say they've already experienced or they expect to experience difficulty obtaining or even renewing a policy. And the National Association of Realtors has openly said that Florida is basically the epicenter of the insurance issue in real estate. Well, that doesn't help any either. So remember, buyers are already coming into going to look at houses nervous, right? And the roof age is one of the fastest ways to trigger that fear. Number 3, buyers already know that roof age is a known documentation trigger in Florida. They already know that. Again, buyers and their agents have learned this, right, from hearing it everywhere. So a 15+ year roof often reads like potential insurance friction. Number 4, buyers avoid older roofs because they really don't want any surprise negotiations later after they've already fallen in love with a house and they already see themselves living there. Here's what actually happens in real life, right? I show houses all the time. A buyer tours the house. They love it, love it, love it. They get an insurance quote that's way higher than they expected, or higher than their budget, or even higher than the qualifying amount of the monthly payment that their mortgage lender gave them. So now they've priced themselves out of even qualifying for that loan. Or the buyer's insurance company sends out their preferred vendor and they get asked for roof documentation, and suddenly the buyer is forced into one of 3 choices. They can pay more in their homeowner's insurance every month, forever. They can replace the roof when they buy that house sooner than they planned for, or even that they budgeted for. Or what happens most, they walk away and they go find a similar home with a newer roof. And that's what's happening mostly. 5, this is why some buyers won't even tour homes if the roof is older. So buyers are filtering homes the same way they filter, I'd say, like HOA fees, right? They're trying to avoid a property that comes with a hidden monthly penalty. And yes, it's true that people say we don't want a house with a roof that is too old. It's less negotiating power for that buyer later if that insurance company demands that, hey, you need to do something about that older roof now before we renew your policy, or the premiums don't go up to $8,000 a year. Now, I've never heard that yet, unless you live like on the beach. That's going to be expensive. But so yes, some buyers genuinely skip showings altogether when they see a house with an older roof, not because they're being picky, but because they're trying to avoid a deal that turns into an insurance math nightmare. I do recommend to my buyers to go ahead and get a few insurance quotes before we even make an offer on a house that they really love and want to buy, or at least if you're under contract already, do get those quotes during the inspection period. Get those quotes because if something happens and the prices are too high during that inspection period, you still have leverage to maybe renegotiate the deal, the price, or you can walk away. So if you are a home seller or you plan to be a home seller, soon, and your roof is older than 15 years, I'm going to give you some proactive steps that you should take just to help you with that process. Make sure you know the roof age, right? When was it installed? Make sure you have the permit or an invoice. And this is especially true if you don't still have the original roof. Maybe you replaced it or maybe the previous owner replaced it before you. You can find that information on the county website, pull that permit, have it ready. If the roof is 15 plus years, go ahead and assume that insurance companies are going to ask questions and you want to be ready with an inspection option. Definitely get one remaining useful life style inspection from someone that the insurers accept. Again, often that's a roofer, sometimes it's a qualified inspector, but remember, just be aware the potential buyer's insurance carrier may still ask for their own preferred vendor to come out and inspect the roof again. And another idea is to already have a few re-roofing quotes available. Now, caveat here, if you live in a community where you can research or already from permits on the county website what most comparable homes paid for their new roof, then this step may not be necessary. For instance, I have some listings with roofs that are older than 15 years, but I already know from pulling the permit information on the county website of the other homes in the community that did have the same roof type, they had similar square footage. I already know what those prices are. So having quotes might not be necessary if you already have this kind of information, but having a re-roofing quote or knowing that the other roofs, what they cost in the neighborhood, that's going to give you, the seller, negotiating power. You're like, how does that give me negotiating power? Well, because naturally, the buyer is going to think that roof is going to be $1 trillion to re-roof. But when you have that information handy, it's going to be a realistic cost to cure anchor, right? It prevents panic pricing when a buyer is suddenly asked you if you know what the typical cost is to re-roof. There's no pulling the wool over your eyes. So I do recommend that you provide your real estate professional with that remaining useful life document, the permit or the roof age of your home, any repairs or receipts that you've had done on the home, so that real estate agent can package that together and give it to the buyers and the appraisers up front. This also helps to protect your price and, of course, the timeline of the contract once you're under contract. So when sellers prep all of this information up front before listing the house, there are several things that happen. And I believe this is the most important reason to have this information up front, even knowing that your eventual buyer's insurance carrier could ask for even more documentation. But it's still important to have because you want to market that upfront information to potential buyers so that they at least make an appointment to come view your house. By having a pre-listing selling home inspection with a wind mitigation certificate and a 4-point inspection, it's going to create perceived value in the minds of potential buyers and their real estate professionals. It's telling that buyer up front that you care about that house. You're telling them, hey, we've maintained the house, and that you are already making sure that the house that you're trying to sell was good to go even before you listed it for sale. It's going to create a lot more peace in the mind of a buyer. And again, it's how you get them in the door. It helps them to say, well, at least I can see the owner is being, very transparent about the condition of the home. And even though the roof is older than 15 years, maybe we should go see it anyway. And that's what you want to create. You want them to come see it anyway. And many of we real estate agents, we encourage pre-listing inspections for people that have roofs that are older than 15 years so that we can eliminate as much stigma surrounding the roof age in Florida as we can. And because we want to get buyers to make showing appointments. We don't want them to just disregard your house. That, my friend, is disclosure upfront and less surprises later. And hey, if you want my Southwest Florida roof prep checklist, I know I have a checklist for everything, so that you know what to gather to give to those people so nothing gets derailed in your deal, please put the word roof in the comments below, and I'll reach out to you and get a good email so I can get that over to you. And I do hope that you will consider joining this YouTube channel family by subscribing. And if you have any other questions about real estate markets here in Manatee or Sarasota County, or Pinellas, Hillsborough, whatever, be happy to chat with you. We can set up a FaceTime or a Zoom call. Love to talk with you. I'm Kathryn Newman. I will see you on the flip side.